Good afternoon, America. It is Friday, September 5th, 2025. I'm Erick Erickson. These are the 4 things you need to know this afternoon, and a programming note here first. So the way I've done this for the last number of months as an experiment to get this going was I was trying to use AI to take the stories I was interested in, say, here's my take, have it summarize the stories, and it has increasingly made more and more bad errors, fabricating stories that are not true. And I'm tired of using AI, so I'm going back to freeforming this instead of just reading it off a teleprompter and seeing what we can do here. So today's somewhat of an experiment. Up first, 22,000 jobs in the United States. That's the labor report, and it's not good data. In fact, 75,000 manufacturing jobs have been lost in the United States. Looks like the tariffs are working. In fact, the tariffs are to blame for a number of these things. Now, I know some people don't want to hear that, but it's actually showing up in the data. Manufacturing jobs are down, prices are up, labor costs are going up as a result, and we've only got 22,000 jobs. Now, the upside of this is that we will more likely than not get the interest rate cut. In fact, Bank of America expects we'll get 2 interest rate cuts now as a result of the poor jobs number. This comes after the president, of course, fired the head of the Bureau of Labor Statistics, and now the president actually has to own the numbers because, well, there's no one left to blame. Up next, Pete Buttigieg is blasting the Trump administration for getting rid of flight delay compensation rules, where if your flight was egregiously delayed, you had to be paid by the airlines. Now, this sounded like a good idea, and Buttigieg is upset the Trump administration is getting rid of it. As I mentioned this story on the show earlier today, let me explain this to you. The rule actually did you very little, and it actually drove up costs for airlines. The whole point of Pete Buttigieg and the Biden administration doing this was actually to drive up the costs of flying, because airlines raised their prices in response to the rule because they were compensating you, they weren't completely reimbursing you, and they were also still getting you to where you wanted to go so you could make money off of their hardship due to weather, due to mechanical failure, due to things that were beyond their control. It drove up your costs, so it drove up aviation costs, so it drove up flight tickets, so it drove down people flying to save the planet. It's the same reason the Biden administration conscientiously decided not to upgrade air traffic control or actually boost any other aviation safety, because they actually wanted to degrade the experience, drive up costs, and keep people from flying to save the planet, all while making you think they were doing it for you. Venezuela has escalated seriously against the United States, flying jets low and fast over American naval vessels. This comes after the United States has changed its rules of engagement and how it intends to handle the drug cartels. We now bombed that one boat that was coming out of Venezuela. You've got people in the United States wringing their hands over it, screaming due process. It was in international waters. They were drug agents coming from a violent gang from Venezuela, working with the Venezuelan president. It was an act of war, just a different war than the war that we're used to fighting. This is a drug war. The Americans are now showing we're going to change the rules of engagement and be far more ruthless to the drug cartels than we have been in the past. A needed, necessary change. Venezuela doesn't know how to respond except aggressively flying planes low and fast past American ships. They can be shot down too. If Venezuela wishes to escalate, I assure you the President of the United States will escalate, and Venezuela will not win. Lastly, the Trump administration is considering giving Eric Adams, the New York mayor, the Saudi ambassadorship. They're trying to get him out of the New York City mayoral race to try to stop Mamdani. Now, this is proving more and more impossible as people are starting to gravitate more towards Mamdani. He looks like he's going to win. Andrew Cuomo, who is Trump's alleged preference in that race. Trump hasn't said so. Cuomo trying to keep the distance. Cuomo's not running a very good race. He ran a terrible primary. He didn't do aggressive opposition research against Mamdani. The thinking is that if they can get Eric Adams out of the race, Curtis Sliwa cannot be persuaded to leave the race, but Cuomo might be able to consolidate the field enough to stop Mamdani. That doesn't actually look likely in the polling, and it doesn't look likely based on the way Cuomo's run his race. But it does show that President Trump is actually very interested in his hometown and trying to save it from a socialist takeover. That's it. That's the experiment today. Those are the 4 things you need to know before you get home this afternoon. I'm Erick Erickson. Have a fantastic afternoon. Have a great weekend. I'll see you Monday. Please keep the faith.